Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the She Talks Birdie podcast. I'm Dr. Shannon Reese and I am so excited to start Season 2 with a very special episode that I created in partnership with PXG. At the time of this recording, we just paused to remember and honor the men and women who have given their lives in defense of our freedoms in this country on Memorial Day. And prior to making plans for this episode, I had no knowledge of how golf and members of our military were working together on behalf of veterans. But today in this special episode, I'm excited to share a conversation about the mental game that I had with two members of the military community. These two gentlemen are a part of PXG's Hero Squad, and in this conversation, they share the wonderful work they are spearheading that warrants attention, admiration, and celebration together with PXG. So sit back and discover how golf has become an amazing conduit to healing a very special group of people to whom we as a nation owe a debt of gratitude. She Talks Birdie is for you, the golf enthusiast, who wants to discover how to play the game you love better, smarter, and more effortlessly. If that sounds like exactly what you need to take your game to the next level, then I'm so glad you stopped by. My name is Dr. Shannon Reese, and in each episode, we'll take a look behind the curtain in your mind to uncover the simple mindset strategies that will help you play great. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the She Talks Birdie podcast. This is Dr. Shannon Reese, and I am so excited to be joined today by two members of our military. I have with me here in the studio Corporal Chris Nowak, who is also military and veteran liaison for PGA Golf of America, and Corporal Chad Pfeifer.
Thanks for having us on. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Hey, Chad, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So where are you guys calling in from today?
I'm calling in from Wildwood, New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm calling in from home in Caldwell, Idaho.
Well, it's so exciting to have you guys here, and I would love to dive into a little bit of your stories. So, Chad, I'll have you go first, and would love to hear your hero's backstory and how you got introduced to the game of golf.
Yeah, so I joined the U.S. Army in 2005. I grew up playing baseball, and actually, I really wanted to join after 9/11 happened. But with some conversations with my dad, I ended up pursuing baseball to finish out my college baseball. And then once baseball was over with, that's when I joined the military. So I was stationed with 3rd of the 509th. We're Airborne Infantry Unit up in Fort Richardson, Alaska. And in 2006, our unit was deployed to Iraq. We were in the Iskandariyah area. And April 12th, 2007 is when our truck, our Humvee, hit an IED, which resulted in the loss of my left leg above the knee. And thankfully, I was the only one that was injured in the blast. Some of those IEDs can take out the whole truck, but everyone else in our truck was okay. But I was medevac to Germany, Launchstuhl there, and then over to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. And that's where I did my physical therapy and rehab, and actually where I was introduced to the game of golf. So it was my time in the Army was very quick, 3.5 years. And like I said, 15 months of that was doing physical therapy and rehab. But yeah, it turned me on to golf, and I've fallen in love with it.
So you're in the midst of rehab, and somebody just comes up and says, "Hey, dude, you want to play golf?" Or what?
Yeah, I was at the start of my rehab, and this gentleman, his name was Christian Baggy. He was also blown up in Iraq and was missing both of his legs, but he was injured back in the start of 2006. So he was kind of at the tail end of his physical therapy, and he had his prosthetics, and he would just kind of go around and talk to the guys that were coming in. And it was kind of a small world type of deal because his wife ended up being one of my college classmates, and she worked for our baseball team. So it was a small world deal. But he just said, "Hey, when you get up on your prosthetic, let's go out and do something." And that day came around, and he was like, "What do you think about golf?" And at first, I didn't really care for it. I thought it was a old man sport that you needed money to play, and so I wasn't all that interested. But I reluctantly agreed and went out to the course with him, and like I said, hit a couple off the sweet spot and just fell in love with it. And that's all I wanted to do after that day. I'd go to therapy in the mornings and then go to the course in the afternoons and just hit balls until I was tired.
That's amazing. And you had no experience with golf prior to that?
Just very, very, very little. Our baseball team did a golf fundraiser, and as seniors we got to play, and so that was one of the times I played golf, and that was just more of a baseball players see who can hit the longest drive type of deal. There was no such thing as a short game at that time, so we were just kind of young and dumb, but just hitting golf balls as hard as we could.
Well, I'm curious to know if you think that your history with baseball gave you an advantage.
I definitely feel like it helped me transition to the golf swing. Yeah, I mean of course everything was different after I lost my leg. Everything was new, but as far as the hand-eye coordination, you'd think it would be easier because the ball's not coming at you at 90 miles an hour. It's just sitting there on a little white tee. But no, it definitely helped as I got into golf. That swing translated into the golf swing, and then that hand-eye coordination helped definitely as I got into the short game and putting. So it definitely helped me as I moved over to golf for sure.
Well, I love this story. So you got bitten by the golf bug immediately and sucked in ever since, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I did. Yeah, it's crazy.
So what did that lead to? Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with golf now?
Yeah, so after I got into it, it took me probably a year and a half before I started to, get decent at it, pretty good. And but once I did, I started to look into competitions, and as I looked around, I found the National Amputee Golf Association, which is basically amputee golfers that come together for a big tournament every year. And then at the same time, in 2011, President Bush was hosting the Warrior Open, which is a tournament he put together for wounded veterans. And so the timing of it just kind of synced up, and I got accepted to play in that tournament and actually won his tournament the first 3 years. So I was very blessed. Yeah, thank you. Very blessed, with the opportunities that came about. And again, I just kept working on my golf game, kept getting better and better. And I had a lot of other veterans that would come up to me to the Warrior Opens and just say, "Hey, what you're doing is really cool. Keep it up." And, you're inspiring a lot of guys, which here I am just playing golf, and to know that I'm inspiring other wounded veterans was crazy for me. And so I thought to myself, how could I reach out to more veterans or people with disabilities? And at the time, my goal was to become the first ever amputee to play on the PGA Tour. And so I gave that a good run. I played on the Korn Ferry Tour. I played the Albertsons Boise Open back in 2015, which is a great accomplishment for me. I didn't play great. I was very, very nervous with all the family and friends that were out there watching me. But it was a great experience, and I accomplished that goal. Since then, we've got three little boys that I'm enjoying coaching baseball, and so my track has kind of shifted away from professional golf at the moment. But I'm just enjoying life and really just enjoying helping other wounded veterans find the game of golf and get involved.
I think that's amazing. And how fast you progressed. Oh my gosh. I mean, there are people who work from a very early age all the way, up to adulthood and probably don't progress as rapidly as you did. So hats off to you for
Yeah, thank you.
some great accomplishments and great goals that you've got. So I think that's exciting. I'd love to see you do that. So it's still possibly on the radar?
It is. But yeah, with everything that's going on, I've kind of taken a step back. So I'm not quite practicing enough as I should be, to reach that goal. So it is still a possibility, maybe if my game keeps up in the next 10 years, maybe the Champions Tour might be something I'll look forward to. But, I've played with a lot of these PGA Tour players, and without me practicing and needing to do what I need to do, they're obviously very talented and very good at what they do. So I still just enjoy going out to tournaments and being around these players and being around veterans that get to experience it too. So I've found that doing what I do outside of professional golf, I can still have a great impact for other wounded veterans. So it's very cool for me.
It's kind of the best of all worlds. I love it.
It is, yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think that's great, Chad.
My
all
pleasure.
right, Chris, we will hand the mic over to you. Let's hear about all the dirty details.
Well, my journey is a lot different than Chad Pfeiffer's, and Chad does not actually say how good of a golfer he really is, but he can play, and he really can play. I know he doesn't like to talk about himself, but he can really play. My journey is different. I joined the Marine Corps in '83. We had a policy in our family. I grew up in the military that the males joined the military right after high school. I got blown up on a range during a routine training exercise, so there's nothing glamorous about that. I did my rehab at Brooke Army Medical Center as well. I served 6 years in the Marine Corps, and after that, I went to work for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and that was my introduction to, at that time, there really wasn't a big avenue for adaptive sports in the late 80s. We didn't have the Wounded Warrior Project. It wasn't prevalent for service members to be injured and things like that. So I did more of regular sports. I played hockey, played a lot of softball, but mostly spent my time doing hockey, and then got into adaptive sports with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Ended up running the adaptive sports programs for all the VA out of Washington, D.C. And that's how I got introduced to golf. After my hockey career ended, I had to find something to do, so golf seemed like a natural fit. And during that time in D.C., started working with PGA of America to develop the HOPE program, which is Helping Our Patriots Everywhere, which we use golf as a therapeutic modality for veterans who are recovering from various things, whether limb loss, PTSD, and things like that. We're not going to make any Chad Pfeiffers through our program, but we're using it more as a therapeutic intervention. So, my game struggles a lot. Chad can contest to that. But, to me, it's more of the therapeutic value of golf, what golf brings to veterans. We're going to put close to 4,000 veterans through our programs this year. So
that's amazing. So how quickly has this program grown?
It's grown. Well, I started it in 2016 was my first year with PGA of America when I left the Department of Veterans Affairs. So in 6 years, we've grown to serving over close to 4,000 veterans a year through it. It's just, as I'm sure your listeners know, and and Chad as well, golf is such a great example of life. Is a great tool for veterans to use in their rehab journey because it is life. You can't think about your last bad shot. You can't think about your last bad life decision you made. You got to look forward, and all those different struggles that you have on the golf course are the same struggles that veterans are experiencing in everyday life. So that's how we relate and use golf as a therapy.
So needed. And honestly, what you just described is what I try to teach my clients as well, right? Leave the past in the past because you can't change what's already happened. But boy, oh boy, do they struggle to leave it behind them and not drag it with them like a ball and chain to the next shot, to the next hole, and so on. So yeah, big struggle. But I love that idea. So the idea for the Hope program, Chris, was that something that was kind of a passion project for you?
Yes. When I was with the Department of Veterans Affairs, I found that we were doing week-long programs and having veterans travel to them. For example, we had the summer clinic, and it was great to teach veterans to surf from Ohio, gave them confidence, but they're really not going to surf when they go back to Ohio. So when I was with the VA and talking to PGA, and that's when I got bit by the golf bug, I was like, golf is everywhere. How do we use this so the veteran can then golf in their communities, golf at home, and things like that? So then just coordinating with PGA of America and just working with them through the process, they were starting to really pay attention to the veteran space of their foundation. And it was just perfect timing for myself and PGA of America. And it just, it worked out very, very well.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story as well. And thank you both from the bottom of my heart, and I know our listeners as well, for your service. We appreciate you. So I'd love to dive into some more details about all the good that's going on in the merging of, golf and the life of the veteran. And I think one thing that would be great for us to start with is just to kind of talk about the learning or even relearning process that needs to take place. What does that look like from what you guys have experienced with the veterans you're working with?
I would say just a lot of practice. So for me in particular, when I first started playing, mine was a lot about trusting my prosthetic. So when I got up on my prosthetic and got out to the golf course, everything was new for me. Of course, I played baseball before, and so I knew how to swing. But translating that to the golf swing, and now having a fake leg, something that I needed to trust and get used to, was big for me. And so I know that's the key for a lot of guys, a lot of wounded veterans. They're dealing with this new amputation or a new disability that they're working with. And golf is great therapy just in that sense that it's different terrain. You're walking up and down slopes, up and down stairs from the clubhouse, in and out of bunkers. All the different terrains that you're out on a golf course is just great therapy, just in the physical aspect. And then if you throw in the mental side, when you're getting going, it's just an escape from reality. And that's exactly what it was for me. So, you'd go through your therapy and you have all this pain and you're dealing with depression, all this stuff that's going through your mind. And then you just go out to the golf course and now it's like, oh, it's fresh air. You're trying to accomplish a simple task, be it, very frustrating at times being golf, but it's a simple task. You're trying to hit the ball to the target, right? So it's a simple task that in the military, that's what we're assigned to do, right? It's a lot of just simple tasks that you don't complain about. And so you're just trying to accomplish this task. Once you do that, whether it's 1 times out of 100, or if it's the first time you try it, it gives you that sense of accomplishment. And that's great for wounded veterans, that are dealing with all this other outside stuff. So just the sense of accomplishment is great. And that's what makes it great for a great sport for anybody. That's what golf has done for me, just as I was getting into it. And then, as you get into competition, that's a whole nother story. But just getting into golf, there's so many great things that it provides anybody as they're getting into golf.
What I really like is that you pointed out the necessity of simplifying your focus and how you are tying that to what you're trained to do in the military, which then so beautifully translates to golf. That simplification down to what is my task at hand, as opposed to the myriad of things that a lot of golfers, non-veteran, non-injured golfers have to kind of wade through as well. I mean, I think the sport has so many things that could be vying for your attention that we can get very easily distracted. So I love the connection. Is that something that you feel you're teaching golfers how to do, is to, kind of take the skill set that they learned in the military and directly apply that to golf?
I think that, Chad did a great job describing, that aspect of it. And what I like to tell people is, it's an all volunteer force. So first of all, it takes, a type A personality to volunteer to join the service. As we know, golf does draw type A personalities to the game. So when we look at it, we do take the military approach, and we have a curriculum that we follow for our Hope program. That is, we start with the grip and take them all the way through to the last day where they go out and play 18 holes. And our goal in all this, again, is not to make Chad Pfeifers. I mean, I cannot tell you how great this guy hits the ball. It's unbelievable. But I'm jealous in case you can't tell. But is that what our goal is when they go out and when they graduate from the Hope program, they play those 18 holes. Our thought process is, let's say they shoot 110. Okay. What's the one thing you need to think about when you're playing the game of golf? Striking the golf ball. You really can't be thinking about the trauma that you've experienced, the trauma that you're dealing with, all these other things, that thought process that get in your head. So what we're trying to do is get them to focus on the golf ball and just striking that. So we can teach them that. So if a veteran goes out and shoots 110, that's 110 what we call moments in time. That the veteran is not reliving that experience, not dealing with the trauma. And then what we're finding, as Chad was talking about, dealing with the terrain and all these other different things that they're dealing with, that moment in time then becomes longer. And that becomes more than just striking the golf ball. And that's where we're using the mental aspect of the game to help the veterans in the rehab process, and using it more as a therapeutic type of sport versus all the other adaptive sports that I've played, where you can be angry. Playing hockey, you can fight. You know, if you try to hit a golf ball as hard as you can, it's really not going to fare too well. If you're thinking about other things, where all the other adaptive sports and all the other sports that most veterans play doesn't really give the therapeutic value that golf does. And that's what we're realizing. And that's why we're growing in numbers that we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a testament to the numbers, right? The success that you're experiencing. People wouldn't be continuing to be drawn to the game via the program if it wasn't working and working incredibly well. And I think what you spoke to there, Chris, is that you're almost hijacking their thought process, right? So rehabilitation is less daunting when they're being distracted by what they're doing. So they're still kind of rehabbing out there on the golf course, but it's not like being in a rehab center, right?
It's everyday life. I mean, and when you go to a course, you may get paired up with somebody you don't even know, and that person may, you're going to have to interact with them. And so that's part, what we're finding with the therapy as well. Now, the downside of all this is a lot of veterans are calling me and saying, hey, now my wife is making me go to the flower show because she says if I can go play golf with strangers, I can go to the flower show with her. And I said, hey, that's your own deal. You got to deal with that. So, but there is that, and that's what's happening is that veterans fall in love with the game. It's that type A personality, I believe. They fall in love with the game, and they are willing to go out and play and be paired up with somebody just for the opportunity to play, and not realizing how much therapeutic value is in that 18 holes with that stranger, that they're getting that therapy during that 18 holes. And it's to me, it's the greatest sport there is for anybody who's dealing with any sort of physical or mental issue to take up the game and play.
It's amazing. And I think that, what you're describing has such broader application, right? So beyond this, but the whole idea that it is therapy, but when they're doing it, it's not therapy, right?
Correct.
It's fun. It's golf. Awesome. All right. So let's talk about the mental fortitude required, because I work with a lot of amateur golfers, club members who I would say were probably incredibly mentally resilient in the workplace, right? A lot of them were heads of companies and, built big businesses and things like that, which requires a lot of mental fortitude. Then they get out onto the golf course and they're like, newbies. They have no idea how to be tough out there because they let the game just really push all of their buttons. Now, my guess is that there's a level of mental toughness that is required to just serve in the military, just to even go through basic training I could only imagine how tough that is and how tough you have to be as an individual. So when we're looking at the need to be, for a veteran, not only, continuing to be mentally tough to kind of go through the rehabilitation process and making the adjustments that they have to for the rest of their lives, how does that carry over onto the golf course, and what is golf doing to help them just get even stronger from a mental and emotional standpoint?
In fairness to Chad went through the Army boot camp, so I'll let him, it was a little easier, so I'll let him take this question.
Oh, shots fired. No. No, I think, in the military, I think all different branches have their form of, there's a saying, embrace the suck. And it's, the mentality is that even when things are going crappy, just either enjoy it or just suck it up and get whatever you're doing done, right? And so if you translate that to golf, everybody's going to have a bad day on a golf course, right? Like, it's inevitable. It's going to happen at some point. Now, we all enjoy it when everything's going perfect and you go out and shoot your best round ever. But when veterans go out there and they're just getting used to the golf or just learning how to do it, not everything's going to be perfect, right? But if you can hit those couple good shots, and everybody has them, right? Whether you're injured veteran or you're 95 years old, doesn't matter. You have that one shot on the golf course that brings you back, right? And so that, I think, is why golf is so great, because it's those one or two shots that do keep you coming back, and they keep you focused on, hey, if I can hit 2 or 3 like that, I can hit, maybe 2 or 3 more the next time I'm out. And so I think it's because you can't perfect golf, for me, and I know for a lot of veterans as well, but you can't ever perfect golf. And so you're always striving for that perfection, but it's never attainable. And so I think, as we say, embrace the suck. When things are going bad, you can always look at those positive things, right? And being positive about, for me, I'm always positive because I'm only missing one leg, right? I've played golf with guys that are missing 2 legs, or they're missing 2 legs and an arm. And so there's always going to be somebody off, or that's worse off than what I am. And so if I'm always trying to be positive, whether it's in life or whether it's on the golf course, then golf is always going to be enjoyable. It's the times when, you do get that negative attitude and things are going bad on the golf course, like golf can suck at times, but the positive attitude and just kind of taking that towards golf. And golf, I think golf helps veterans with that, taking that off the golf course and applying it to life, right? So when you're having a crappy day at home, or things aren't going your way, whatever, you look at the positive in everything and just keep pushing forward. Go to the next day and say, hey, it's a new day, let's get it going, and just keep pushing forward, and kind of, like I said, embracing that suck. But it's a military mindset that helps a lot of veterans, not just golf wise, but just in their everyday lives, to just keep going and kind of help them get out of those depressed days and those bad days. So golf is great because it can't be perfected, like I said, but it helps that kind of psyche, off the golf course, and it helps veterans keep pushing forward. So I think it's great in that sense.
Was that an automatic connection point for you? I'm just curious. Chris, will ask you this question. You understand the concept, from your military days, of what it means to embrace the suck. Is that something that naturally translated to the golf course, or did you need to be reminded that it was the same?
No, it translates. It reminds you real quick. The game of golf reminds you real quick, especially my game.
Yeah, it's a very humbling sport for sure. And so it reminds you.
Yeah, it really does, and I think that the veteran population is really, really taken to the game of golf. I mean, you look at how many veterans are now playing the game of golf, and just because of that, it does remind you of service. It does remind you Chad said it great, embracing the suck. You're going to have bad shots out there. You're going to have bad moments, but it's the good ones and staying positive. And that's the therapeutic value of the game of golf. Again, it's life. And you just got to embrace the positives.
So is there something specific that you all are doing to reinforce the necessity to look at the upside, right? There are two ways of looking at the world. I have a t-shirt that says, people who only view the world as the glass is half empty, don't recognize that they're missing the point that the glass is refillable, right? So we forget. So is this something that you're specifically taking action to help instill in the veterans, right? The necessity to be patient, to be positive, to look for the little wins, right? So, what you said, Chad, about, you hit 3 good shots. Well, so next time you might hit 3 more just like that. So focusing on building momentum. So Chris, I just wanted to kind of piggyback what you just said. Is there something specific that you guys are doing within the program, or is it literally just being their surrogate, sort of inner coach, right? To say, hey, but let's look at the positive here.
Again, I know I'm beating the drum, but that's the game does it itself. The game forces you to have a positive outlook. Nobody wants to go out there and spend $130 a round and be miserable and suck at it.
Right.
So when you do have those bad shots, you know exactly what you did wrong. You overswung. You were angry. You weren't paying attention. It just does that. So it forces you to, and who always, and what do you talk about? The good shots you hit. You don't talk about how you hit it over you chipped it, you're 5 yards, away, and still took you 5 shots to get in the hole, but yet you talk about the 230 drive you hit right down the middle, never mind the rest of it. So it forces you to stay positive and to stay in the game and stay in that moment of time. And I think that especially with the military mindset, because it's drilled into you, is that it clicks. You don't need to be. We don't have to sit and have a meeting and say, hey, look, it just happens, and you can really see it with people click. I love it. When we have veterans come to a program, and I can just see it click. I can see them shanking 5 or 6 shots, and then just this hit one flush, and it's like it just clicks. You can see it in them. You can see it in them, and that's to me the joy of the job. My job is seeing veterans who it clicks and it changes their life.
It's got to be a beautiful thing, because I know how it makes me feel when my clients start smiling or report to me that they didn't hit perfect shots, but boy, did they have fun playing. And I'm like, yay. Yeah. We're making progress. But I think the big differentiator, and I really hope that, the listeners take what you just said, what you both said to heart, because perspective matters. And I think what you both just described is part of the military training, right? This outlook is so vitally important to success in very difficult, dangerous situations. And so if it's built into them then it can carry over into golf. So you guys know it at a core level that I would say my average client doesn't, because maybe their lives have been a heck of a lot more pampered than somebody who has gone through military experiences like you guys both have and other veterans, such that, you guys know how to keep things in the right perspective. I think the average person, certainly a lot of my clients, struggle with their perspective and tend to dwell on the downside rather than the upside, which is what I help them try to turn over.
Right. So and it's funny, and just hearing Chad talk about it, because it's the same thought process I have. I'm only missing a leg below the knee, So when I look at Chad above the knee, I'm like, oh, I'm better than he. I'm better off than he is. Or Chad looking at a double amputee. That's just a thought process that we have. Is to me, it could always be worse. That type of stuff. And I think Chad did a great job describing that. Is that, and I hope your listeners, who are listening, can sit and think, what, I just heard these two clowns on the radio and whatnot, and they're missing legs. So what am I bitching about? That it's cart path only today type of stuff.
Right.
I mean, those are things that, I think that the game of golf again does, because it's life.
Exactly. Beautifully said. So we've talked about what the learning process is like, how golf really takes the place of therapy and makes therapy not feel so much like therapy, and the wonderful skills and mindsets that you all get kind of groomed into in the military, and how that directly translates to golf, which I really hope our listeners take to heart. And then also the importance of keeping everything in perspective. So I'd love to talk about how PXG has, what they've created that's kind of pulling all of this together through the Heroes Squad and the PXG Heroes program. And could you kind of expand on that and tell us what specifically is going on in each of those two entities?
For me, and I'm sure Chad's experience is probably different, but for me, it allows me to engage mostly non-veterans in reference to golf. So being representing and being on the Hero Squad, wearing PXG gear, having PXG clubs and bags. I just got my Gen 5s, Chad, but neither don't want to show off. But having that is an instant conversation starter. And what I always like to do when I talk about PXG is I like to talk about Bob Parsons, how he got there, his background of being a Marine, what he does, how he gives back, his thought process about his clubs and how he wants to be the best and strive. So for me, it's a conversation starter, as well as obviously playing great equipment and being blessed to be on the Hero Squad. But and me and my job and personally, it's allowed me to have conversations with people that may not be willing or approach, have a simple conversation with me. And I'm sure Chad on his level is got a different experience.
I would say a lot of the same for me, though, Chris. I mean, because I get to play and I've had the great opportunity to play a lot of different pro-ams and play some professional stuff. And again, just wearing PXG or walking through the airport and having a backpack or a hat, that's got PXG on it. And it just opens up that conversation. And I'm the same way. I love, Dr. Bob Parsons and what he's doing with PXG, but then how much he gives back. He has gone out there and created just a phenomenal golf equipment. But then how he's given back to veterans and first responders through the PXG for Heroes program. So it's great for me just talking about it, getting little coins or stickers, like something we can hand out to other people. And, it starts a conversation. But then they're involved with, the Semper Fi Foundation. And so they're giving back a lot to them, and then they get veterans involved in the communities. Semper Fi will reach out to PXG and, maybe have a tournament in whatever part of the country, but the veteran can go out to those tournaments, be involved with the community. And so it's just kind of tying the veteran community together through golf. Again, I mean, they started the company and doing everything through golf. But it all goes back to the veteran community and keeping everybody involved and, making people aware, of suicide hotlines. If a veteran needs that, like it's just keeping everybody involved and kind of aware and keeping track of your brothers and sisters, throughout the country. So getting them all tied into golf through a club, that's great. But just looking out for everybody is what I think their biggest program, or what their program does, is a huge part of the veteran community. So
it's become a very, very recognizable brand in the veteran community as well, as more veterans start to use and take advantage of the Heroes pricing. And Chad touched on it, and I don't think Bob Parsons gets enough credit for how much he does give back, not only of his time, but financially beyond what people even know. It's just, to me, he's a great American, and it's great to to be able to represent and be part of the squad.
That's wonderful. So it sounds to me like PXG is bringing a network together, a network of veterans with everyday folk, but also just providing almost a community feel. Because my guess is that it's difficult once you leave the military, where you had a very specific community and you return to civilian life, and to experience that loss, and maybe find it a little difficult to achieve an anchor of some sort, especially if you're wounded. Can you all speak to that for a moment?
I think that, for me personally, I think PXG, again, does a great job. Colonel Hudson, again, Chad, a Marine, leading the way. Colonel Hudson has squad calls. And to me, it has given us a feeling of being part of a unit again and belonging. And that's on just the heroes squad. But I think nationally and globally is when you see veterans who are playing PXG and you're able to have that conversation and you're able to instantly just do that. So it definitely has made the connection, I believe, and started to build a network and camaraderie again.
Wonderful. So for anyone who is a veteran, who knows a veteran, who would want to learn more about these programs, where do they venture?
For PGA Hope, they can do pgareach.org. It's free to veterans, taught by PGA professionals who are specifically trained on how to teach veterans with various disabilities. We also spend a lot of time with those PGA professionals, teaching them the military culture. If you're instructing, golf's a very handsy game. Get your shoulders. A pro will come up. If you're interacting with a veteran who may be suffering from PTSD at a high level, and you go to try to rotate his shoulders without having that discussion with him, that may not end too well for you. Mm-hmm. So we spend a lot of time with our pros who do teach the program that this is how the military culture, and this is how we have amputees come in. We have veterans from sitting in wheelchairs. We have work with blinded veterans and all the disabilities. But we spend a fair amount of time talking about the military culture as well.
And for those who want to learn more about maybe getting equipment and taking advantage of what PXG has to offer in terms of, I think you mentioned a discount, Chris, is it for wounded veterans specifically or all veterans?
It's, as Chad was saying, it's all veterans and first responders.
Got it.
It's heroes pricing. Chad, what do they use? ID.me, I think it is.
Yeah, the military verification is ID.me. But yeah, any other social media websites, Facebook, Instagram, and then pxg.com. You can go on there. You can do the verification through their website. I would just say reach out and find a fitter. They got fitters all over the country. But yeah, they do a great job, and their social media, they're good at responding back too. So even if you have any questions, on Facebook, they've got a couple groups on Facebook that if you are a veteran and you can join the Facebook group, forget what it's called. I think it's just PXG Troops. But yeah, you can join social media groups and be a part of the team, and they'll answer any of your questions. But yeah, call PXG, get a fitting scheduled, and they'll let you know all the discounts. But yeah, they're constantly running deals for veterans and first responders. So always keep an eye out and follow their social media stuff, and they'll keep you updated.
Excellent. Well, I will be sure to get those specific links from you guys, include those in the show notes so that people can get where they want to go easily. So this is wonderful. This has been an amazing episode, really talking about the commonalities and the differences with regard to the mental side of the game of golf. I think what is truly inspiring is how golf is being used as a vehicle to help. Right? It is not just for recreation and enjoyment, but it can be used as a wonderful vehicle to help and heal. And I think that is an amazing way to look at the sport. My mind has been open to all the possibilities above and beyond what I do even. What last thoughts might either of you have that you would like to share with our listeners before we sign off here?
Mine's more for Chad. Chad, are you going to give me 18 in October again?
Yeah, we could do that.
All right.
We'll figure something out.
Guessing this guy is selling himself short, Chad.
No, Chad's seen my game. I need those 18. Trust me.
No, I would just touch back on the perspective thing again when we were talking about it earlier, and just say, next time you're out on the golf course, your job is getting the ball in the hole, right? So what I tell people a lot of the times, if they have a bad shot, just you got to keep things in perspective. And I tell them, hey, you didn't do your job, but no one's trying to blow you up or no one's trying to shoot at you, right? So every day is still a good day. So, we went through a lot, but, being on a golf course, it should be a lot of fun, and you should just enjoy it while you're out there. So keep that good attitude, and, lots of fairways and greens.
Well said. I love it. Well, guys, thank you so much for giving me your time today for this episode. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing all of the wonderful work that you're doing. And I hope that those of you who are listening were very inspired, and that your outlook on your own game will be leveled up because of what you heard today, and that your perspective will be shifted in a more positive direction, because life can be worse. So those of us who get to play this wonderful game are truly blessed. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in today. Did you enjoy this episode? Please consider heading over to iTunes to leave me a review. Listener reviews help boost my ranking so that I can reach more amazing golfers just like you. Would you like to subscribe to the She Talks Birdie podcast? You can easily link to your favorite directory at the bottom of my show notes page. I'll be back soon with another episode to help you use the most powerful tool in your game. Remember that things start changing for the better on the outside when you start embracing the changes that must take place on the inside.